While headlines focus on inflation, elections, and global conflicts, a quieter economic crisis is unfolding in the background, one that most people haven't even noticed yet. Wages are stagnating, debt is rising, and the cost of simply living a normal life keeps climbing faster than incomes. It's not a sudden crash like in 2008, but a slow squeeze affecting millions of households. In this video, we'll uncover the silent economic crisis that's already reshaping jobs, savings, and the future of the middle class, and why ignoring it could be a big mistake. Today, we will talk about the silent economic crisis most people haven't noticed yet. So before we start, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. 1. Introduction. A crisis that doesn't look like a crisis. Economic crises are usually dramatic. They come with stock market crashes, bank failures, or massive unemployment spikes that dominate headlines. However, the modern global economy is facing a different kind of crisis, one that is slow, subtle, and largely invisible to the public. This silent economic crisis does not erupt overnight, but develops gradually through declining purchasing power, rising debt, and stagnating wages. Many economies appear stable on the surface because employment numbers remain steady and markets continue to function. Yet beneath this appearance of stability, millions of households are struggling to maintain their standard of living. Instead of a sudden collapse, this crisis is characterized by a long-term squeeze on ordinary people, especially the middle class. Over time, people find themselves working just as hard, or harder, than before, but their money no longer stretches as far as it once did. Economists increasingly warn that this slow erosion of financial stability could reshape societies and economies over the coming decades. 2. The growing gap between wages and living costs. One of the core drivers of this silent crisis is the widening gap between wages and the cost of living. While many economies report nominal wage growth, real wages, income adjusted for inflation, have stagnated or even declined in many places. At the same time, essential expenses such as housing, healthcare, education, and transportation have increased dramatically. Over the past 2 decades, housing prices alone have risen far faster than household incomes in many countries. According to international economic analysis, housing costs have increased roughly 3 times faster than median household incomes over the last 20 years. This imbalance forces families to allocate a larger share of their income to basic needs, leaving less for savings or investments. The result is a growing sense of financial insecurity even among people who technically belong to the middle class. In some countries, wages have failed to keep up with inflation for years, steadily eroding purchasing power and making everyday life more expensive. Over time, this imbalance creates a hidden form of economic stress that does not always appear in official economic statistics. 3. The shrinking middle class. The middle class has historically been considered the backbone of modern economies, providing stability, consumption, and social mobility. However, one of the most alarming signs of the silent economic crisis is the gradual shrinking of this group. In many countries, the share of people classified as middle class has been declining over the past several decades. In the United States, for example, the proportion of the population considered middle class dropped from about 61% in 1971 to roughly 51% by 2023. This trend is not limited to one region. Similar patterns have been observed across Europe, Asia, and developing economies. The erosion of the middle class occurs because wages are not growing fast enough to keep up with rising living costs, while the wealthiest individuals accumulate an increasingly large share of economic gains. Over time, this leads to a more polarized society where more people fall into lower income categories, while fewer maintain stable middle-income lifestyles. When the middle class weakens, consumer spending declines, economic growth slows, and political tensions often increase. 4. The hidden rise of household debt. Another key element of the silent economic crisis is the growing reliance on debt. When incomes stagnate but expenses continue to rise, households often turn to credit cards, loans, and other forms of borrowing to maintain their standard of living. In many countries, household debt levels have risen significantly over the past decade. This debt is no longer used primarily for investments such as starting businesses or buying homes. Instead, many families now borrow simply to cover everyday expenses such as food, rent, and healthcare. In some economies, household debt has reached historically high levels relative to national income, creating long-term financial vulnerability. The danger of this trend is that it masks economic weakness in the short term. As long as people can borrow money, consumer spending remains stable and the economy appears healthy. However, if economic conditions worsen, such as through job losses or interest rate increases, many households could suddenly find themselves unable to repay their debts, potentially triggering a broader financial crisis. 5. Inflation and the erosion of purchasing power. Inflation is another critical factor fueling the silent economic crisis. Although inflation rates fluctuate over time, the cumulative impact of rising prices has significantly reduced the purchasing power of ordinary households. In many regions, the prices of essential goods such as food, rent, energy, and transportation have increased much faster than wages. For example, in some countries, consumer prices surged dramatically within just a few years, severely reducing the real value of salaries. Even when inflation slows down later, the damage often remains because prices rarely return to their previous levels. As a result, families must permanently adjust their spending habits. This leads to difficult choices such as postponing major life decisions like buying a home, starting a family, or investing in education. Over time, the accumulation of these pressures gradually transforms the economic behavior of entire generations. 6. Technological disruption and job insecurity. The rapid advancement of technology, automation, and artificial intelligence is also contributing to the silent economic crisis. While technological innovation increases productivity and efficiency, it can also disrupt traditional employment structures. Automation now threatens a significant portion of jobs that were once considered stable, including many middle-income professions. Economic studies suggest that as many as 1 in 6 middle-class jobs could be affected by automation in the future. In addition, the rise of the gig economy and freelance work has changed the nature of employment itself. Many workers now rely on temporary contracts, short-term projects, or multiple part-time jobs instead of stable full-time positions. Although these arrangements provide flexibility, they often lack benefits such as health insurance, retirement plans, or long-term job security. This shift creates an environment where workers must constantly adapt to changing economic conditions without the safety nets that once protected them. 7. Social and political consequences. The silent economic crisis does not only affect individual finances, it also has significant social and political implications. Economic insecurity can lead to declining trust in institutions, growing inequality, and increased political polarization. When large segments of society feel that the economic system no longer works for them, frustration and resentment often increase. This dynamic has already influenced political debates around the world, including discussions about taxation, social welfare programs, and economic reform. Economic research also shows that austerity policies, government spending cuts during economic slowdowns, can worsen inequality and weaken social safety nets, further amplifying these tensions. If you liked this video and would like to see more like it, please give it the thumbs up. Leave a comment and click the button to subscribe.